Tensions between Israel and Hezbollah have once again flared into violence, raising concerns of a wider regional conflict. The recent escalation began with Israeli airstrikes targeting Hezbollah positions in Lebanon. Israel claimed the strikes were preemptive, aimed at preventing imminent missile attacks. Hezbollah, however, characterized its subsequent barrage of rockets and drones as retaliation for the killing of one of its top commanders. This exchange marks a significant escalation in the long-standing conflict between the two adversaries. The Israeli Defense Forces, or IDF, asserted that their actions were in self-defense. They claimed to possess intelligence indicating an imminent threat from Hezbollah. The strikes were intended to neutralize rocket launching capabilities and minimize future risks to Israeli civilians. Hezbollah, however, disputed Israel's version of events. They maintained that their response was a direct and justified reaction to the targeted assassination of their commander. The situation has drawn immediate international attention. Diplomatic efforts are underway to de-escalate tensions and prevent further bloodshed. The international community is closely monitoring the situation, urging both sides to exercise restraint and seek peaceful resolutions. The precariousness of the situation is undeniable. The spectre of a wider conflict looms large, a chilling reminder of the volatile nature of the region. The coming days and weeks will be critical in determining the trajectory of this latest eruption of violence. Understanding the motivations behind the actions of both Israel and Hezbollah is crucial to grasping the complexities of this conflict. Experts suggest that the assassination of the Hezbollah commander was a turning point, leaving the group with little choice but to retaliate. This targeted killing is widely seen as a calculated move by Israel, potentially aimed at disrupting Hezbollah's operations and establishing a clear deterrent against future attacks. Hezbollah's response, while significant, has also been noted for its measured nature. This measured approach could indicate a desire to avoid a full-blown conflict, at least for the time being. By responding forcefully, but with a degree of restraint, Hezbollah may be aiming to send a clear message of deterrence while remaining open to de-escalation efforts. However, the timing of these events adds another layer of complexity. The escalation coincides with ceasefire talks between Israel and Hamas in Cairo. This raises questions about Hezbollah's intentions and whether they are seeking to influence the negotiations or pursue a separate agenda. Some analysts speculate that Hezbollah may be attempting to capitalize on the current situation to strengthen its position vis-à-vis Israel. Others believe that the group may be trying to undermine the ceasefire talks and prevent any easing of tensions between Israel and Hamas, viewing both as enemies. As with any armed conflict, the recent escalation between Israel and Hezbollah has already resulted in tragic casualties on both sides. In Israel, one soldier was killed and 2 others were injured, reportedly due to an Iron Dome interceptor malfunction. This incident highlights the inherent risks and limitations of even the most advanced defense systems. In Lebanon, 3 people were killed in Israeli strikes, including a Hezbollah-allied Amal movement fighter. The loss of life underscores the devastating human cost of this conflict. Beyond the immediate casualties, the violence has also resulted in widespread fear and disruption to daily life for civilians on both sides of the border. In Israel, communities near the Lebanese border have been on high alert, with residents seeking shelter and schools closed. In Lebanon, the strikes have caused damage to infrastructure and further strained the country's already fragile situation. The psychological impact of the violence cannot be overstated. The constant threat of rocket fire and airstrikes creates an atmosphere of fear and uncertainty. For those living in the region, the trauma of past conflicts is still fresh, and the current escalation serves as a painful reminder of the fragility of peace. The international community has condemned the violence and called for restraint from both sides. However, concrete actions to address the root causes of the conflict and prevent further escalation remain elusive. Section 4, Global Stage, Regional Stakes, the US, Iran and the International Response. The recent escalation between Israel and Hezbollah has reverberated across the international community, drawing responses from global powers and regional actors alike. The United States, a steadfast ally of Israel, has expressed deep concern over the violence and called for de-escalation. The Biden administration has been actively engaged in diplomatic efforts to defuse the situation, urging both sides to exercise restraint and seek a peaceful resolution. Iran, a major backer of Hezbollah, has maintained a notable silence on the recent exchange of fire. This silence has been the subject of much speculation, with some analysts interpreting it as a sign that Iran is distancing itself from Hezbollah's actions. This could be a strategic move on Iran's part, aimed at avoiding jeopardizing the ongoing ceasefire negotiations in Cairo between Israel and Hamas. The international community is closely watching Iran's response to the situation. Iran's actions, or lack thereof, could significantly impact the trajectory of the conflict. If Iran chooses to actively support Hezbollah's escalation, it could lead to a wider regional conflagration. However, if Iran continues to exercise restraint, it could create space for diplomatic efforts to de-escalate the situation. The role of other regional actors, such as Egypt and Qatar, is also crucial. These countries have played a mediating role in past conflicts between Israel and Hezbollah and could leverage their influence to facilitate dialogue and de-escalation. Section 5. Fragile hope, ceasefire efforts amidst escalating tensions. Despite the ongoing violence, a glimmer of hope remains in the form of ceasefire efforts being mediated in Cairo. Israeli negotiators have arrived in the Egyptian capital, signaling a continued commitment to finding a peaceful resolution to the conflict with Hamas. The resumption of these talks amidst the heightened tensions with Hezbollah underscores the urgency of finding a path to de-escalation. An Israeli official expressed cautious optimism about the potential for a ceasefire, citing the significant US military presence in the region as a deterrent against further escalation. The official also suggested that Iran, despite its silence, is likely seeking to avoid a wider conflict that could have devastating consequences for its interests. The success of the ceasefire talks is far from guaranteed. The situation remains extremely volatile, and any misstep or miscalculation could reignite the violence. The negotiators face the daunting task of bridging deep-seated mistrust and finding common ground on a range of complex issues. The outcome of these negotiations will be closely watched by the international community. A successful ceasefire would provide much-needed respite from the violence and create an opportunity for further dialogue and diplomacy. However, a failure to reach an agreement could lead to a dangerous escalation with unpredictable consequences. Section 6. Life under fire. The conflict's impact on Israeli and Lebanese civilians. The human cost of the Israel-Hezbollah conflict is significant. Civilians on both sides face fear, uncertainty, and disruption. In Israel, the IDF has imposed restrictions to ensure safety. This includes closing vulnerable locations and limiting gatherings. These measures create anxiety and disrupt daily life. In Lebanon, the situation is dire, with severe economic and political crises. Israeli airstrikes have further damaged infrastructure. The Lebanese face shortages, inflation, and lack of services. Section 7. The road ahead, navigating the uncertain future of the Israel-Lebanon conflict. As the dust settles on the latest round of violence between Israel and Hezbollah, the international community is left to grapple with the question of what comes next. The situation remains highly volatile, and the potential for further escalation is undeniable. A number of factors will determine the trajectory of the conflict in the coming days, weeks, and months. The outcome of the ceasefire talks in Cairo will be crucial. A successful agreement could pave the way for a period of relative calm and create space for dialogue and diplomacy. However, a collapse of the talks or a failure to implement a ceasefire could lead to a dangerous escalation with unpredictable consequences. The actions of Iran, Hezbollah's main backer, will also be critical. If Iran chooses to actively support Hezbollah's escalation, it could significantly alter the balance of power in the region and lead to a wider conflict. However, if Iran continues to exercise restraint, it could create an opportunity for de-escalation. The international community has a responsibility to use all diplomatic tools at its disposal to prevent further bloodshed and work towards a sustainable peace in the region. This includes engaging with all parties to the conflict, addressing the underlying grievances that fuel the violence, and holding those responsible for human rights violations accountable for their actions. The road ahead is fraught with challenges, but the pursuit of peace must remain a priority. The alternative, a wider regional conflict with devastating consequences, is simply unacceptable.